Hey, this is Christine, your DIY craftaholic. Welcome back if you're returning, and if you are new, welcome. I am honored to be the guest host of this month's 5 Under 5 collaboration that is hosted by Missy of Crafty Cove and Emily from Farm Charm Chic. But more about them further into the video. For this video, I'm sharing 5 fall home decor dupes from Big Lots, which can be repurposed for everyday decor. So without further ado, let's jump in. For DIY number 1, this is a wooden crate and a fox leather from Dollar Tree. The inspiration has pumpkin, but I chose to use the maple leaf. So I took a maple leaf from a pack and I traced it out on the leather and then cut that out. I then gave the crate 1 coat of Waverly Chalk paint in Plaster. And after it dried, I took a black fine tip sharpie and I wrote the words, "Give thanks." I then outlined it with stitch lines using the marker. And as I looked at it, I realized that the word "give" wasn't quite centered, so I added a little acorn to the corner. I then used some Eileen's tacky glue to glue the leaf on, since using the hot glue would have made it lumpy. Then, because I wanted something extra, I made a small jute bow and glued that on. Price tag $2 for the crate and the leather, although they are all from my stash. Okay, so this is the 5 Under $5 open playlist, which is hosted monthly by Missy from Crafty Cove and Emily from Farm Charm Chic. Missy loves to create budget-friendly farmhouse DIYs, while Emily does rustic farmhouse, shabby chic, and vintage. And this month, of course, I have the privilege of being guest host. And I will share more about my channel further into the video. But after you get done watching this video, head down to my description box for the links to the host channels as well as the playlist. Now on to DIY number 2. See the price tag for this one? I'm using the wooden box from Dollar Tree. And this one is very easy. All I will be doing is adding a piece of flower foam already glued onto a piece of cardboard. And I glue that in the box. And here I'm just testing out the height of the candles I had. Of course, ideally it would be better to use a battery powered candle or one that is higher, like you'll see me use in the end. I added some fall picks that I had in my stash. You can easily switch this out for your everyday decor or another season. And then I cut a small piece of wallpaper, slid that into the little slot at the front of the box. I chose to leave the metal holder on there because I'm going to be repurposing this. And then I added the candle, and this is done. How easy is that? Now for DIY number 3, you could call this trash to treasure because I'm using an empty soup can, and then I just gave it a coat of Mod Podge and allowed it to dry. Then painted it with 1 coat of Waverly black chalk paint in ink. Because this is chalk paint on metal, to prevent any abrasion with the brush or the sponge and the liquid Mod Podge, I used my Plaid Mod Podge Pearlized spray that Plaid had sent me. I'm a Plaid ambassador, and the link to their website is in my description box below. And always make sure to use any form of spray in a well ventilated area. So after that dried, I just took some pieces of floral foam that I had and I placed them in the bottom of the can with a little hot glue. And I got this buffalo check pumpkin pick that has on a rusty bell and a pine cone from Hobby Lobby last year for $1.99 on clearance. And then I just added some maple leaf, lamb's ear, and some wildflowers that I also had, stuck those in there, fluffed it up and arranged them somewhat. And I love it. Now, as per the inspiration, I'm done, but I went a little bit further and added embellishment with a sticker from this pack from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm done. Now, I'd say this cost me $2, and that is for the buffalo pick. So if you are new to my channel or coming over from the playlist, welcome. I'm so happy you joined me today. Here on my channel, I do DIYs on a budget, dupes, look for less, and some occasional Dollar Tree shopping hauls and thrift flips. If you love budget-friendly DIYs like these and you have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing and be sure to hit that notification bell. Hit it again and select all so YouTube notifies you whenever I upload new videos. Now on to DIY number 4. This one is my favorite. I got this wooden house in a box of goodies from my friend Teresa from Teresa B DIY. So I removed the tag with some heat because you know these things can be hard sometimes. I then traced and cut out the house on a piece of wallpaper from Dollar Tree. And then I realized that I still needed to remove at least another 1/2 or 1/4 of an inch on each side. So I trimmed it down and then set it aside. And here is where I added my own flair to this piece. I painted this wooden pumpkin I had in my stash with a coat of white Waverly Chalk paint and dried it with a heat gun, which I didn't show, of course. Then I removed the back of the wallpaper and pasted that on the inside. One side was a little too short, so I used a tiny piece to cover that up. And now for some embellishments. This is a fall sticker rub-on transfer from Dollar Tree. I selected one of the pumpkins and rubbed that on at the bottom there. Then the words "Hello Autumn" and added that to the top. Now, if you would like to connect with me outside of YouTube, I'm on Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. And if you would like to help support my channel, I'm on Buy Me a Coffee as well. All those links can be found in my Linktree address, which is also in my description box below. So to give the pumpkin a little dimension, I use this rose gold marker to add some stitch lines around the edge. And look how beautiful that looks. And then to seal the picture and the words in, I went over it with some Mod Podge. And then to give the pumpkin something to sit on, I glued in a tumbling tower block in the middle and then glued the pumpkin on top of that. Now this part was an afterthought. I had some mixed paint left over from another project, which was the same shade as the pumpkins, so I decided to paint the outside of the house with one coat of that paint. Now this mixed paint I used on my woodpecker trays. I'll link that video in the top where you can check that out. I like mixing paints sometimes. And here it is. And to add a touch of fall, I added 2 small pumpkins at either corner. I just used a piece of masking tape for temporary hold. And then off camera, I added a little jute bow. And this is done. I think this would cost me $1.25, and that is just for the rub-on transfers that I purchased. Now on to DIY number 5. These are the items I used, at least started out using. This one booked me a seat on the struggle bus. I thought that I would just make the stuffing mostly with newspaper and a little polyfill on the outside to just cushion the paper. So here I am just crumpling the paper into a little ball, little larger than my fist. And then I opened the fabric and then decided to cut off a large square. And I believe this is where it started going downhill for me, or this is where I encountered one of my issues. Here I'm using my heat gun to remove the wrinkles. This is a short-handed way of removing the wrinkles. If you have an iron nearby, you can certainly do that. I didn't. And so now I'm using the little bit of polyfill to cushion the paper while I picked up one corner of the fabric, and as I went around, I was forming small pleats and then using the hot glue to hold it in place. And as I'm going around, I realized that some parts of the fabric were too short, and that was the issue as well. And when I tried to gather it all at the top to tie it, it didn't look right. And oh boy, guess what? I looked up and I saw the struggle bus driver waving at me, come on, get on the bus, get on the bus. I had to admit, this one earned me a seat on that bus. So this is when I decided, oh, just toss the paper and start over and only use the polyfill. So I added some more polyfill and went at it again. And it was now a little bit easier to handle. So I picked up the corners again and pleated the middle until I was holding it around the neck. And then decided to place a piece of the stick in the middle and then use a cord to just tie everything to hold it in place. And then after that, I just wrapped the cord around the pumpkin to form pegs. And then I met back at the top, tied it, and then cut it off, as well as the excess fabric. I wasn't too happy with it, but I continued on. And I could have not shown you this part of it, but I wanted you to see the mistakes I made so that you can avoid them if you decide to recreate this. I'm sure there's an easier way of making a fabric pumpkin that looks exactly like what the inspiration piece looks like. But this was my first time trying this anyway. I then placed the leather on the cutting mat and used my L ruler to measure and cut about 1/4 inch strips. And I believe I cut maybe 5 strips. And then so as to find the middle of each piece, I folded it in half. And then I just glued them from the bottom of the pumpkin. And that's just to cover the cord. And when all the pieces met at the top, I glued them in place. Then took another piece and wrapped that around them a few times and then glued that down. And I then cut off the excess pieces at the top. Added pieces of boxwood greenery, made a small leather bow and glued that on as well, and whew, finally complete. What a struggle that was, but I love it. Now for the final reveal. If you're still watching, thank you so much for sticking around to the end. In total, the inspiration pieces cost about $74 when I added up all the prices, and my dupes cost less than $5 each, which means you can dupe high-end decor too. So thanks for spending the time with me. I absolutely enjoyed making these, and I want to thank the ladies Missy and Emily for asking me to be the guest host for this month. I truly appreciate the gesture. So guys, don't forget to visit the host channels and the playlist down below. And if you love DIYs like these, I suggest this video right here and this playlist. And stay safe until next time. Bye.